Thanks for joining us.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
Welcome to the podcast.
You are now tuned in to this episode of our podcast. Today, we are going to interview some of the greatest and most influential minds in our field.
That's
and
us.
now, please welcome your host.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And we're back. You know, one of the things that I've been shocked is I'm doing this for a long time, and the shows that have gotten the most reaction have been Pesach programs, or the Pesach programs that went south, that were terrible. They were from a different planet. So with us right now is Miriam Berfas. She's been with us on Pesach Program. In fact, I met you and your son, Brad, who's a prominent attorney specialized in divorce and moving violations. I met both of you on a Pesach program, not one of the ones that you've written about now. Miriam writes for the Jewish press, but her article was in the Five Towns Jewish Times, letter to the editor, about a Pesach program that took place around the year 2000, where it was a terrible program. And you sued and you won. So people, I think, would be very intrigued to have you. So welcome back to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. So now let's go back. You were going on a Pesach program to Virginia, and
Virginia Beach,
everything went wrong from the get-go. Tell us what happened when you went to the program.
Okay, what happened is when we came into the program, it was a one-man program that this individual, who shall remain nameless at this point, okay, he was running the program. When you're in Virginia Beach, it's not as though it's like you're in Florida and you're not, accessible to any other hotels or any other venue. Once you're in Virginia Beach, that's it. You're stuck there for the entire Pesach. The minute we walked in, okay, and we were used to being able to check in immediately, with the desk, et cetera, there was no one at all to direct us what to do, where to go, how to find out about our rooms, or anything at all like that. And the fact of the matter is that I'm not exaggerating when I say for 45 minutes or more, we were rolling around the lobby with every other guest that didn't know what to do either. The individual that was running the program, okay, and promised us a program the likes of which we had never seen before.
I think he delivered.
Was nowhere to be found. Exactly.
He was hiding somewhere.
He was hiding somewhere. And I'll preface it by saying, so I don't lose sight of this, Zev, that we understood, okay, after the fact, that this particular individual was running programs every single Pesach in a different venue, because nobody would have ever, he treated all the guests at every Pesach program the exact same way. Once he got the money, which was up front, he wanted us to pay all the monies up front. He was nowhere to be found. Okay, so he got away with doing this for a minimum that I know of at least a half a dozen years in various different locations.
Which is what happened when we did the Pesach Pro Atlantic City. He did it under different names and different venues.
Right, exactly.
But we're not identifying the name of this operator because they're no longer in business. So exactly. That's why we're not doing. If they would be in business, we would certainly publicize it. So continue. So everything was wrong from the get-go. You couldn't find your room.
Right.
You were supposed to have, right, Brad? Everybody was supposed to be together next to each other, and it was
everything was all in disarray. And I remember, like, he promised, a lavish tea room. How they advertise extravagant, lavish, and the highlight, so to speak, was a piece of matzah and jelly. There was
that
nothing.
Was a tea room, matzah and jelly.
We're not even saying like it has to be the Ritz-Carlton type event, but it was like you couldn't even get candies, you couldn't get cake, a drink was hard to come by. It was just a situation where everything was just disarray beyond despicable. It's not like like my mom was saying, there weren't other options. It's not like you're going for a weekend somewhere in the middle of July, as we are now. Be like, okay, we don't like this hotel, let's pick ourselves up and go somewhere else. Obviously for Pesach, we know the situation, where we need to be in certain environments, food, etc. And he took complete advantage. From minyanim that weren't organized to no organized programs. Programs have from the best to the worst to somewhere in between. At least you have rabbis and lectures and speakers and, various things, or you have events for, for children or adults or adolescents. There was nothing. Everything was promised before. And yeah, I got this and I'm organizing this and you're going to have this events and, they're going to be things for the children. And there was absolutely, nothing. And then when you tried, eventually when he did appear, lo and behold, I think a few days into Pesach, it was, like, well, this, like, what do you don't like it, like leave, type thing. And this is what I offered. And, I'm like, you would think he would be embarrassed by what he put forward. He didn't care. And it was just one of those things where everyone was complaining in every capacity. And it was just something that was just like beyond. Like, well, listen, we've been to programs, good, bad, and indifferent. The majority have been great, actually. But in this situation, it was like beyond comprehensible in regards to how terrible the place was from start to finish, and the experience that we had.
Okay, Zev, let me jump in for 1 second. Going back for a moment, when we were finally shown the rooms, okay, you have to understand this was not just one room. It was my mom, may she rest in peace. It was my mom, my daughter, okay, her husband, myself and my husband, okay, it was Bradley, okay, we had 4 rooms is what I'm trying to bring out. The minute that they showed us the first room, after rolling around the lobby for all of that time, okay, about an hour or so, the minute he showed us the rooms, we realized he paid no attention to what we had requested, because we do everything from A to Z before we go anywhere, okay, and we had everything in writing and what have you. Paid no attention. We asked him for a room where we don't have to walk outside. We want to be able to get from the lobby to the dining room. That was never adhered to. We had to go outside with the elements. We were almost blown to a shred, et cetera, et cetera. So as I said, it was my mom, my daughter, Bradley, my sister Debbie, and so on and so forth. We had 4 rooms, and that was the good news. When we came to the dining room for the first Seder, and this is something that's really the most prevalent, or at least one of the most prevalent issues, the dining room was unbelievable, okay? There were no tables set up. This was for a Seder, Zev, a Seder. There were no tables set up. And we didn't even know what table to go to when they finally showed us our
I think
table.
they even, just to interject, I think they even ran out of wine the first night.
Right,
exactly. Like who runs out of wine, for the Seder.
It was horrendous. It was horrendous. They finally showed us to the table that supposedly was ours. It was not set up. There were no waiters that were able to know what the heck they were supposed to do.
And there was no AC.
And
so you could have dropped dead also as well. So
that's another caveat. And the thing is, finally, okay, when they finally did serve the meal, which was who knows how long into us stepping into the dining room, when they finally served the meal, I'm not exaggerating, okay, we thought it was funny, but it was really pitiful. They served soup in little tiny ashtray type, I don't even know how to explain it.
Like little, it was like little cups, so to speak. It wasn't even like a regular dish.
And also,
and it looked like the food, like honestly, it looked like a dog ate the main meal. No disrespect to a dog, but it's like, it seemed like they put like a piece of chicken that was half eaten or half bitten into, or like from 18 weeks ago, as opposed to, fresh the first night of it. You expect, all right, listen, there've been programs, as the days progress, even the best, where, you run out of stuff, or it's not as great at the beginning. But this was like from day one, everything just went, was south.
You're saying the food was bad in small portions.
You got it.
Very small, minute would be the best. And the entertainment was non-existent. That's another thing. He promised us extravagant entertainment. I don't know, the man just absolutely lied to our faces before and not only that, but we had been used to, and also, this was in the article, okay, that I culled, from Larry Gordon of the 5 Towns, where he was disappointed, in a particular current program. And the thing is that they, as far as, giving us anything of what he promised, it was non-existent. Nothing. And this is the main thing I want you to bring out. I almost lost my train of thought. Okay. He wanted what we were used to for many years in the nicest of venues, okay, north, south, east, and west, as I said. We were used to paying a deposit, and then at the end of Pesach, okay, you stood online or whatever, and you paid the balance. No. This individual wanted every penny up front before we set foot in the hotel, and from his perspective, rightfully so, because had he not done that, we would have turned around and run out of the place.
So, did you take credit cards, or it was done by cash or check?
That's a really good question. I think
I think it was credit, but
it was
because
useless.
credit
yeah,
card, you
it
do
might
have
have been
some
check,
recourse.
right? Credit, at least you could dispute. So probably it was check, actually. Now that I think about it, but I don't know. I can't say 100% certainty. But either way, he was a scam artist. Let's put it that
He
way.
was a scam artist, no question about it. And he got away with it for a long time.
We're speaking and we're looking, first of all, at when it happens when a Pesach program goes bad, terribly bad. What recourse do people have? Well, our guests were able to do something about it. Miriam Berfas writes for the Jewish Press, but her article was in the Five Towns Jewish Times. Bradley Berfas is a prominent attorney, specializes in divorce and moving violations. By the way, is there a correlation between divorce and moving violations?
I always get that question. I would say definitive yes, but at the same time, like I try to say, people, maybe you're running away from speeding away from a divorce process. So yeah, you're getting caught for speeding. And that way you're on your cell, you're agitated, etc. Sometimes again, I give a 2-for-1 special at the end. But again, I like I said, I do specialize in both areas. I'm also a judge in the parking violations in Queens County as well. But that being said, the recourse, that we had is, listen, a lot of people at the end of the day, complain about things, but a lot of people don't want to go through with it.
Well, how many people were on the program to begin with?
A few
We
hundred.
just-
A few hundred, I'd say about 200-300 people.
And were you the only ones that were upset?
No, everyone was upset. Everyone was upset. Everyone had, faces on. Everyone's complaining. But, again, some people, just, whatever. And then there are other people that, oh, absolutely. So we went around, we tried, to talk to people, because this wasn't just a thing where, listen, things don't happen the way you want them exactly. Okay, so you're expecting, let's say, veal the first night and you don't get it. Okay, you live. But this was beyond. So in the end, what we wound up doing is we actually wound up suing this individual in small claims court.
But before we left, I wanted to just interject. Before we left, we did give the proprietor an option. Okay, before Bradley finishes, excuse me, I'm sorry. We gave him an option to refund at least a good part of the money that we paid him. He laughed in our faces, and I said, this is not the end of it. Okay, we're going to see you in court. He thought that was a big joke, because most of the people that were interested from all over the country, Canada and the 5 towns and here and there, yes, oh yeah, we're going to get him. We're on board. It turned out that we spent many days in the post office writing the correspondence to these various guests that were in the hotel.
This is before email was prevalent. I just have to preface that.
And telling them this is what we were going to do. We were taking out, a summons and small claims court. They were all on board until it came time to the situation. They said, no, we're not going to bother this, that.
Why do you suppose people didn't win? People were upset that they were taking advantage of a Pesach program. Why wouldn't they want to get involved?
People just, again, it was just to the point where, I guess Pesach's over. It's like they complain during, like the Jews in Mitzrayim, and then it's like, after that, it's like, okay, fine, so there were people that, let's say, followed up or were interested, in the outcome, or they didn't think we would take it to the level that we did. I mean, listen, we weren't going to, hire attorneys at that point in time. I wasn't in I think I just barely out of law school, or maybe a few years out of law school. I don't remember exactly.
So you were just a new lawyer with not
a
lot
was
of
a new lawyer. Like I said, it was early 2000s, give or take, 05, something in that range, and, we wound up, going to the small claims. We weren't right. We tried, different approaches with this individual, but at the same time, the individual that was answering phone calls in February and March was non-existent, and eventually we wound up going to court. And, my grandmother, let her rest in peace. I mean, she was, part of, the fray, and the judge, I remember at that point in time, was like, listen, if a grandmother, is going to come here to air out the situation, I think it was also July or August where it was a hot day. Very hot day and humid, then obviously there's something to this. And in the end,
didn't this Pesach have high-powered attorneys representing them?
They did.
They did in the end, but in the end, they also were like, it's no big deal. Like that's specifically why, like, again, we weren't, going the civil route or the Supreme route, something like that, because we weren't looking to, sue him for X amount. What we wanted was to recoup, was basically the monies that we, use. So we
But
wanted
small
to
claims court, so how much are we talking? Because there's a limit to how much you can.
Right. So I think at
5,000.
that,
I think
then
at
it wasn't 5. Then I think it was, I don't know, 3 or something like that. So it was less 3,500, give or take, somewhere in that range.
Oh boy, Pesach
per
program have
person.
really gone up in price since.
Per,
Right.
per person. Per
Per
person.
person.
Right. So
Yeah.
again, we wound up recouping,
Right, I want,
go.
yeah. Oh.
You about recouping numbers for the whole
No,
family? Because
That's
it
what I'm
sounds like
trying. Yes, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Bradley is very good at this. But what I'm trying to say is, when we walked into the court and they had their 2 hotshot lawyers, is the way I call it, and they laughed in our faces. They said, "You're wasting your time." And then we couldn't do anything in mediation, which, Bradley tried, and so on and so forth. So when we went, okay, and the judge saw that nothing was happening, he set a trial for 2:00. Now, as Bradley said, he was just fresh out of law school, but
mixing cases, but it's okay.
but as I said, he acted actually as the attorney, and the end result was the judge said, as Bradley said, and I emphasize, when he saw my mom there, he says, I don't think, that this family or these people would have had, the grandmother come into the court on such a hot, brutally hot day, okay, if you hadn't, treated them the way you did. And right then and there, he says, "I'm sorry, but the thing is, these people, you have to give them back their money," okay? And he says, "Oh, yeah, I'll send a check." The judge said no. And this, Zev, I want to emphasize. No, he says, "You're going to write a check right now, okay, before you leave the court." So we won, okay? We won the situation.
It was the principle of it. And, again, it was a good day. Let's put it that way, where he, didn't think anything would happen. And again, if we took it further, we sued for the full amount, it would have been a different situation. And we think we would have gotten even more. But in the end, we got, the satisfaction that we got. And we thought it was, in the end, it was a fair compromise. Obviously, we never went back with this individual again.
But obviously, the check cleared, right?
Yeah, the check cleared. Yeah, definitely.
And that was my first question when I heard the story. So here's the thing, though. Did you tell people on the program that you won money back from him?
Yes.
And were people inspired by saying, "Hey, if you won, we can win too. We get some of our money back"?
I don't know. We kind of left it. I mean, there might have been a few people that decided afterwards maybe to go after him themselves. But honestly, we don't know at this point. We didn't follow it up. We wanted to include people, but at the end of the day, the people weren't engaged on the level that we were. We're fighters, and we don't give up on things that aren't done in the proper manner. And considering what transpired, we felt that there had to be recourse at the end of the day, and we did fight it to the end, and we're satisfied at the end result.
So why do you suppose that other people? Well, here's the main question, which came up in the Atlantic City story that we did on this program, is that the operator did this for many years in different forms and different venues where people were fleeced or people were taking advantage of them, people were owed money. And this is more recent. Yours took place, obviously, quite a while ago. Why do you suppose that these operators were able to get away with when nobody said anything, did anything? We were a tightly knit community. You would think that the word would get out there, don't go to this program, he's going to rip you off.
We were astounded the following year when we saw that he was doing a Pesach program in another venue. We couldn't believe, okay, that he was really he didn't give a darn. Okay, he didn't give a darn.
People are able to talk a good game. I mean, if they're very charismatic and they're a good salesman, they're able to get people back. But the people that are in the know that know how a program is supposed to be run, such as ourselves, you don't go back there. And the people that even didn't want to be a part of, let's say, the lawsuit, I guarantee you they didn't go back. So we got new people, and then the cycle starts all over again. So those people complain, they sue him, they don't sue him, but after 8 to 10 days, that's the end of it, and maybe he'll get a few people that, are just like, they don't know any better. If you don't have anything to compare it to, you might think, the ashtray dish was good, or you haven't been around programs. You might be like, this is fantastic. Although I really don't know who would think this was a good program, but be that as it may, I think a lot of the times, it's a situation where, people that are capable of selling the Brooklyn Bridge or very capable of selling to people. And that's the long and the short of it. Now, fast forward, years later, where, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, you post things of, online, this guy would have been ruined from day one, and I think maybe based on that question, if it was a situation where you were able to post things different than where it was then, the word would have gotten out even further, that people would have been like, especially now when you have online where, every hotel, every program is posted and everyone knows and everyone asks questions and chats and groups through shuls, etc. It would have been, definitely known. And I don't think he would have even come back the following year.
Well, actually, in the case we did the Atlantic City Pesach Program debacle, when we did the program, we had about 100,000 downloads. But I have to tell you is that the operator was doing this in some form for about 8 years. And even though we're in social media, but people didn't know, he changed the name of the entity that was running the Pesach programming or the other programming throughout the year, and able to get away with them. People were saying, had they known, it wouldn't have signed up for the program. Right. So even though we're in social media, people still pull these shenanigans and get away with it.
That's true. Less, but it is true. I agree with that. And listen, it is what it is. It's you can't stop people from being stupid. I mean that.
What?
Well, people don't know. I mean, the truth is they're afraid of lashon hara. They're afraid of the gossip going out there, and that's really the real. Even though there are areas of halacha where it says that in the Ponzi schemes, and I'm sure the whole same thing holds for a Pesach, but if you know that people are going to lose money, you have an obligation to speak out. Right. But people are still reticent to do so. Question for you, Bradley. You specialize in divorce and moving violations. Maybe you should go into the Pesach program recovery.
Maybe, exactly. I mean, listen, it did come up. One of the things that came up on a completely different front, but it was, if you remember, when COVID hit a few years ago and people paid monies in advance, now I guess it became the theme that people have to pay in advance, although I still think programs, depending on circumstances and how long they've been in business, they trust people, in that respect. But there was an issue because that was the first time that people dealt with it. And it was, should people get their money back when the programs were canceled? And there were people, programs that were doing it for 30 years that were refunding the people the money. And then there were programs, the fly-by-nights, to a certain extent. I'm not going to comment on, individual programs, but I know that people did have a tough time getting back their full amount. Sometimes they like, well, we'll apply it to the following year. And people are like, well, we don't know if we want to come back the following year. So it became a situation where people did go after them individually. People did call me. I'll be honest with you. I made a few phone calls, but I didn't officially, legally file anything at that point. Then I was a full-fledged attorney, as I am, now. But it was definitely an interesting take on various things in terms of COVID and how things, changed at that point. And then once, COVID, so to speak, left us, although I guess to a certain extent it's still here, but obviously not to where it was. The programs were like, we want the money in advance, and people were like, well, what if we have COVID again the following year? So it became a thing where things, need to change. But that's, again, a social media platform where people, regardless of food, or a program might be, it's like, well, these people were very nice during COVID. You know what? They're mensches. We're going to go to this program because they know the type of people that they are, as opposed to, on the real scale, social media. I guarantee this individual, if he took the monies up front, guarantee we wouldn't be getting the money back. But then again, maybe it would have been a better situation because at least we wouldn't have been experiencing the 8 days of hell, to be honest. Yeah.
Final question. Did you ever consider doing your own Pesach program? You've been on so many of them.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. We thought about it. It's a lot of work to go into it. I do give the people credit that actually do put their heart and soul into it. But in the end, it was a lot of work. Not to say we couldn't take it on, but we decided not to. But then again, as long as you're on, maybe we decide to do something next year altogether. You're in? Hey,
why not? If it's a good program, but we have to make sure that there's enough wine for Seder night.
And there we go. That sounds like a good plan.
Has to be a good bottle too.
Right.
Zev, what year was this Atlantic City program?
Just past Pesach.
This past one, yeah.
This past Pesach, we had, yes.
Yeah.
That's what people are still upset, and people haven't gotten their money back. And I know people who lost, I have a friend who lost $54,000. I know other people that lost money. Somebody did start a class action suit,
right?
But there's no But it's in bankruptcy. The owner of the
Right,
pro is
and
in
that's the thing. If
bankruptcy.
they file for bankruptcy, you're dealing. Unfortunately, you're not going to collect it. If you're dealing with a situation where the people want it to continue, which likely they don't, it's going to be a hard time collecting at the end of the day. So, be that as it may, it is what it is. But yeah, hopefully, God willing, next Pesach we'll have a great experience somewhere, wherever that may be.
Amen.
If we're not running the program ourselves.
Miriam Berfas, who writes for the Jewish press, her letter to the editor in the Five-Town Jewish Times was about this particular Pesach program. Bradley Berfas is a prominent lawyer. He specializes in divorce moving violations and maybe Pesach program, and maybe if you get on his good side. Anyway, thank you for sharing your experiences. I know you sued a program that was a terrible program, and you were able to get satisfaction. And other people, I think, are listening to what you have to say. You may inspire other people not to let people get away with taking advantage. That's really what the key is, not being taken advantage of.
Yes.
All right. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if they
What were you going to say?
If anyone had experience from any programs, or if anyone has divorce issues or traffic violations, feel free to reach out.
How can they get a hold of you?
What?
How can people get a hold of you?
They can reach me at 917-515-0822. Or my email is my name, Brad, B-R-A-D, Berfas, B-E-R-F-A-S, @gmail.com. Or they could check out my new website that's actually going to be launched officially this Monday. It's nyattorney4u.com. That's nyattorney, the number 4, the letter U.com.
Anyway, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Look forward to having you back again. And maybe we'll reconvene on Pesach. Who knows?
Sounds good, Zev.
Zev, I want to ask you something. Are we off the air now right now?
Okay. So anyway, thank you for listening to the program.
Be well. Have a good job, Zev. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to
Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast, the pulse beat of the Jewish community.
For continuous Jewish programs, TalklineNetwork.com, or our 24-hour-a-day listen line at 641-741-0389. For past shows, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Instagram, and all major podcast platforms, or jewishpodcast.org. Thanks for listening to the TalklineNetwork.com.
You don't need me?
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I need to know what sheets.
You wanted to ask me something?
I wanted to ask you two very quick things.